What's going on, Wolfman fans? Welcome to another video. And, I wasn't actually really planning to put out a video today. I've got a lot of things to do here at the house to get ready for 4th of July, which I hope you guys have some awesome plans for 4th of July. I feel like the lack of patriotism in the nation today, and I mean lack of patriotism is more of a seemingly lack of patriotism. I feel like the true patriots in this country, they're quiet. They are, we speak out on social media, but we don't get a lot of, media coverage in the wider world of the news. Got something on my screen there. Anyway, I feel like we don't get a lot of coverage because we're not out there in the streets rioting and going crazy. We believe in our system's electoral process, and we believe in the passing along of information, and that's what we strive to do. So I believe that we're a lot quieter, and we just don't get the coverage. Plus, at the same time, you and I both know as well that the media, it focuses more on mayhem and just chaos and crazy stuff. Like, the more outrageous, the better for the broadcast. So, they're definitely not focused on us who are over here generally just doing our jobs and keeping to ourselves for the most part. They're not focused on us. But there's still a huge number of true patriots. And those people, I believe, this is a good time of year to really show how we truly feel about this nation. And we can do that in our celebration of the birth of this nation. And I really hope that you guys have something, some fun stuff planned. Go out there, eat a burger, eat a steak, some bratwurst, whatever. Drink some beer. Sing the patriotic song, salute the flag, set off some fireworks, and be proud to be an American. I hope you guys are doing that. And myself, I've got a lot of things to do to prep for 4th of July myself. I got some friends coming over. It's gonna be a good time. Set off some fireworks and cook out, and just gonna be a lot of fun. So I wasn't really planning to make a video because of that, because of the amount of stuff I have to do. But that being said, I did, like I do every morning, I kind of jump on my phone and I start looking at different news articles, and I watch different YouTube videos and go through different Twitter feed or whatever, and I just see what other people are saying, what other hot button issues have popped up overnight while I was asleep. And one thing that I did, I watched a video, and anytime there's certain like YouTubers that if they put out a video, as soon as they put out a new video, I'm watching it. I want to see. And this was a new video by my buddy Matt over at An Appeal to Heaven, and he made a really good point that I don't want to steal his thunder, and I don't think I'm going to, because he's he puts things so much more eloquently than I do. So I think he's his video is going to be like a step above mine, definitely several steps above mine. But he makes a really good point. He in his latest video, he talks about, and I'll leave a link in the description of this video to his. He makes a very good point at Western canon. What he means by that is Western literature, great writers of Western literature. You've got the great philosophers. You got Socrates, Plato. You have Voltaire and stuff like that. Guys like that. And I can't name all of them because I'm sure I haven't read anywhere near all of them. I probably haven't even heard of all of them. But he's got a very good point. And I'll go a step further. There's great literature that has come out of the Western world that we cannot excuse me, goodness, we cannot afford to neglect, and it's important for us to not let it slip away. Many of it just because it's just really good writing. It's very well written stories and stuff such as that. So a lot of nonfiction or classic horror literature, stuff like that. They're just good stories. But you know what? They're the cornerstone of Western literature, cornerstones of Western literature, and they're important to keep. They're important for us to keep that sacred and keep and hold to those pieces of literature, because I mean, let's look at William Shakespeare. The man was brilliant. There's no question, and he wasn't necessarily political. He told great stories. He was a playwright and a poet, and a lot of the words that we have in our English language derive directly from his writings, and there's even a few names that we have nowadays in our in the English language, names that we use. Like, I think there's a couple of women's names that were invented by William Shakespeare. So we can't afford to let go of these important writers and these important pieces of literature. We can't afford to sit there and go, well, he was a white guy during such and such time period, so we have to get rid of him because of racism or colonialism. Like, look, if you think that about some of these writers, you haven't read them. You don't know what you're talking about. All you see is a white guy and you're like, I don't like it. That's not... I've said it before, I'll say it again. The skin color is irrelevant. That makes no difference to the point to who the man was and what he was about. You don't know his personal beliefs. You didn't read his work. How would you know? But we can't afford to let those things go. And even more so, let's get down to, Plato and Homer and Socrates, some of the great philosophers, Voltaire. A lot of these people were very critical of their governments and government policies. Some that, things that some of us still deal with today. Maybe not so much Voltaire, but because his thing was, the monarchy in France. We don't deal with a monarchy here in the United States, but things that they noticed and things that they spoke out against are, for the most part, still things that, are very valid arguments today. I'm not going to cite examples because this video would be way too long if I did that, and I don't really have... I need a pen and paper. I got to do a lot more prep time, and this is very off the cuff, so, But it's important for us not to lose our literary history. As much as the history of the world, and I talk about this all the time, how much we can't afford to destroy our history. And it goes just the same with our literary history. Some of my favorite authors, H.G. Wells, Bram Stoker, Edgar Allan Poe. I love these authors. And these are guys that aren't exactly political. Their stories are just great stories. And again, the foundations of Western literature, we need to keep these literary works alive. We can't afford to lose them. We need to be proud of who we are and where we come from, okay? I'm not saying that, again, and I've said this before, we can't afford to sit there and nitpick in our past because, we weren't there. We're not responsible for the failings of our ancestors, the bad things that other people did. We can't... Why would we sit here and put that mantle on ourselves and take on the shame when we had nothing to do with it? If you're going to sit there and apologize for slavery, let's take you as an individual and put you back in that time period. And you saw slavery right in front of you, before your own eyes. Would your mindset change? No. You would think to yourself, man, this is horrible. Why is this kind of thing going on? You'd think the same as you do now. And you would not participate. So why would you apologize? It has nothing to do with you. You shouldn't have to apologize for something your ancestors did long ago, as long as you don't share their same beliefs. And with that, you shouldn't try to dismantle the entire Western culture, the entirety of Western culture, because you're, quote, ashamed. You know what? I'm not ashamed of who I am. I'm not ashamed of where I come from. And I make no claims to be ashamed or otherwise of the actions of my ancestors, because it wasn't me. It wasn't something I did. And I don't approve, I may not approve of something, some of the things that they did. So that's all there is to it. I'm going to look back in reverence at our history. There's lessons to be learned, and if for nothing else, there's some really damn good stories. With literature, you can sit there and read the words that are written down long ago, and the descriptive power of some of these authors, it puts your mind and puts you in that story like you can see it before your own eyes. You can look at exactly what they're telling you and you can see it. It's really powerful. They're using such words and such descriptive powers to where your imagination goes directly at what they're talking about, and you can put yourself in that story and see it happen right before you. It's a wonderful thing. This day and age, we've gotten kind of lazy. We're like, I'll wait for the movie to come out. Using your brain and using... Sorry I'm turning around so much. I'm sitting on the porch kind of cross-legged, and it's a little uncomfortable. Anyways, we look at it going, we're kind of lazy, intellectually lazy. We don't want to do the work. We don't want to get in there and read. We don't want to... It's weird. We don't want to use the gifts that have been given to us. We have literacy. Literacy is a thing, and it's like a base level part of your education is being literate, being able to read, write, being able to spell, being able to speak. These things are the very basis of our intellect. And you got to think, a couple hundred years ago, literacy wasn't as widespread. Go even further back. Let's go to the Middle Ages. Go back down to the medieval period. The only people that could really read and write, and the people that were literate, were like the royalty, the nobility, and the clergy. The peasants and the common workers and the craftsmen and people in the fields, those guys didn't know how to read. And then you had the mass production of things like the Bible. That was the most, at the beginning, when you first were able to mass print books and stuff, that was the most mass widespread book. And a lot of people in the early days of that spreading literacy, that's the book they came up with. They learned to read. That was their first book. You could see where how a lot of beliefs were set in place that way. But we take for granted such a simple thing, and we become intellectually lazy. We don't want to do the work. We don't want to read. We don't want to use our imaginations. We want somebody else to feed us that entertainment. We want them to make it into a movie so we can just watch it happen. We don't have to try to imagine it. And while it's really cool that we have the technology to be able to put what was one time written down on the screen, and we're able to make it, visually appear before you, that's an amazing feat that we've been able to pull off. But you know what? Not every book has been made into a movie, and not every book has been made into a movie correctly. And what I mean by that is, not every book is translated onto screen correctly. I, to this day, have not seen an accurate to accurate to the book, that is, story of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Never once. And maybe there's one out there that I just haven't seen, but, I've read the book. The book was really interesting. I've read so many books, and I'm thankful that I have been able to do so. I have a library in my house of great books, great classics, written by a myriad authors from different walks of life. And I'm thankful that I have the ability to read those books. And my wife always tells me we need to get rid of some of these books. We're not reading them, whatever. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to get rid of my books. I take pride in my own personal library. We can't afford to lose the literature that we have, that it virtually maps out Western civilization, Western culture. And you can see the evolution of Western civilization through these writings. Even the fictional stories, you can see the evolution of people's thought process and society, and because there are reflections of society and government and stuff like that. There are reflections of that in the writing. Whether or not it's the point of the story, you can look back and say, well, this book was written in the mid-1800s, and this is how people thought, and this is how people did things back then. Wow, that's interesting. Things don't work that way anymore, and it's just as important. So I don't know if that was. I don't think that was at all the point necessarily of Matt's video, but it really got me thinking about it. Take some pride in the fact that you can read a book, and read more. Don't ever stop reading. Take pride in the fact that you know how to read, write, speak, spell, all these different things related to your literacy. Take pride in that and use it. It's an amazing thing. Don't burn books, read books. See what I mean? Anyway, if that seemed a little vague to you, I'm sorry, but I hope you feel the same way I do. I really do. At the same time, I hope you guys are finishing this week out strong. We're about halfway through. You guys are almost done. And of course, 4th of July falls on a Saturday. Not in the middle of the week. It falls on a Saturday. So that means you guys have the opportunity to celebrate and show your patriotism and show your love for this country. I hope you guys have some fun activities planned. I'll keep making videos throughout the rest of this week as we progress up to 4th of July, and I'll decide a little later on whether or not I want to actually make a video that day. But anyway, until that time comes, you guys, as always, stay awesome, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.